thank you for listening to The Bo's Nose, a podcast about QI Roberts Junior Senior High School in Putnam County, Florida. I'm your host, Mr. Bose, and today we'll be talking with guests from our Artificial Intelligence class. Welcome and thank you for joining me today. Please introduce yourselves to our listeners.
Hello, this is Leah.
Hi, I'm Dylan.
Thanks for joining me. So my podcast started out with the same couple of questions. First one is, what is your favorite subject or topic in school and why?
Well, I think my favorite would be science. I just find it really interesting, and it covers a lot of aspects of our current day-to-day life.
I would have to agree with her. I think it would either be science or math, as they're basically the basis behind everything else in our world.
I think that's great. So next question is, what is your favorite QI story or tradition?
I think my favorite QI story would be in our 7th grade year, someone put a brick in the bathroom, and it was just really funny looking back on it. And it wasn't even the underclassmen, and we are the ones that got in trouble for it. It was a senior of that year.
A cool tradition that I like is kind of just like the vibe of the pep rallies. Like you always it's like friendly competition, and we always include the teachers. Because, it's always like a teacher versus student game and stuff like that. I think that's cool.
Yeah, we have our next pep rally coming up here soon. So next question that I have for you is, if you could have coffee with anyone dead or alive, who would it be and why?
I'd do it with my grandmother, because she passed away when I was 5, but my mom still talks highly of her, so I'd like to go back and actually meet her and talk to her.
Mine would probably have to be my grandpa, for around the same reason. He died when I was young, so I didn't really have time to understand what he was telling me about himself, so I'd like to hear about it.
The last question before we get into talking about AI is quality, integrity, respect. Which one and why?
Probably respect, as if you respect the higher ups and everything, it will get you a long way in life. The higher ups will usually be more lenient towards you if you respect them and so forth.
I think I'd choose integrity, just holding true to yourself and your values. I think that's the best thing to do throughout life.
Very good. So let's get into it and start talking about the AI class. So why don't one of you, or both of you if you want, tell us about the class. What is the class about? What is it like?
The first part of the class, we mostly focus on using this program called EduB, which is we use Python for our programming language in AI. So EduB taught us the basis of Python and what all we can do with it. And then recently, later in the year, we got into projects, which if you would like to talk about.
Yeah, so basically the beginning of the year was mainly learning the Python essentials, as well as just AI essentials, but we have to know the language in order to even begin talking about actual artificial intelligence. But yeah, after we kind of completed at least the basis, we moved on to doing projects, and two of them, the two main ones I believe, are a tic-tac-toe project, where we created a tic-tac-toe game and also an AI opponent, which isn't very intelligent, but will still play against you as best as it could. And then a chatbot, depending on what theme you had, you could ask it certain questions, and it would respond according to that theme. You want to explain yours?
Yeah, mine was based off a game. It was basically the Pokédex, and if you typed in any of the starters, it could output the ability, typing, or generation of it, and there's a lot more in depth. One had a Walmart bot. The person Hayden in the AI class also had a QI Roberts page chatbot, which was really cool. And yours was?
I did the Nintendo eShop. It's basically as if you would go on the eShop and it was a little, as if it was actually on the website. But yeah, Hayden had a QI Roberts chatbot actually. Basically, he went on the website and would look at what like little details are there, not like the upcoming events and stuff because that changes, but like sort of the things that are already there. Like what was some of the stuff?
One was like the store with like the hoodies and everything like that. One of them was like the hall pass and where to get it from.
Yeah, basically what you could do is you could ask it a question. So like you turn it on, you could say hi, and then you'd be like, for example, mine was like, what are your upcoming games that you haven't released yet? And then it would print out a list of the upcoming games. And the way it would work is you'd have to train it first. You'd have to run the training file, which would teach it how to work, and then you'd run the chatbot file, would actually make it online, and then you had your intents file, which was actually where you did the whole specific part where you would code it specifically to your theme.
Very cool. So for our listeners who don't know, can the two of you kind of explain a little bit what artificial intelligence is?
Basically, artificial intelligence is the use of programming and robots to produce a sort of intelligence humans have through programming and robots. So, say like the new popular thing, ChatGPT, would kind of be considered artificial intelligence due to how it's learning through what it's taking in, and then it outputs differently from what it's learning.
Okay, so it's not. So these projects you were talking about, it's not kind of they're not if-then statements. Like if you get asked this question, output this response. Artificial intelligence like chooses which responses based on parameters. Is that kind of an oversimplification of it? But
you're kind of on the right track. It's not if statements, but it's like more specific than that. So what you would do is you would write patterns, and it would detect patterns in the word. So, like, it wouldn't process the whole statement, like, what is your best-selling game? You would look for a pattern, a keyword, like bestseller, and then go to the bestseller tag, and then pick one of the responses from that. It would, like, it has this thing, I don't know if we should explain it, but to simplify it, it has this process that it goes through to break down what you're telling it, and then look at each individual bit. Like, it'll get rid of, like, it'll make it all lowercase so it can process it easier. It'll get rid of special characters. And like,
okay, so what separates artificial intelligence specifically from just normal computer code?
Artificial intelligence, I would say, is constantly learning what it's being inputted. So you know what mechanical learning is, like when they try over and over and then eventually they will get it right? Artificial intelligence is also basically the basis of that.
Okay.
Like, it's supposed to be able to take in multiple outputs and give multiple inputs, and give you specific outputs to that, whereas like just regular computer code, like you're saying if statements, if this, then that, that's like just completely straightforward. Like, if you don't meet those specific parameters, it won't output what you want. But chatbot is supposed to be able to process different phrasing and certain ways to say it and still get you your specific desired response.
Gotcha. Okay. So like when I see when I or our listeners see like stories about artificial intelligence and robots, it's the idea that like the robot move isn't pre-programmed. You've programmed the artificial intelligence to say pick up objects, and it kind of interprets from there. Is that kind of the idea?
Yeah, it's supposed to be able to interpret what you're inputting to and see where it falls under its many like different tags and patterns that it has. Really like big chatbots like ChatGPT and like all those really big ones that you hear online, that takes like a lot of processing and code. Like, this is like, well, our project was like the very basis and simplest that you could get, and even then, like, Dylan's project takes about 25 minutes to train.
So now that we talked about a little bit, as best we can on a podcast, what artificial intelligence is in its simplest form, why did the two of you choose to take the class, and why should other students put that down as the class they want to take?
I took it because I've been taking Mr. Cantrell's classes before, and I really enjoy having him as a teacher. But also, I have a personal interest in coding, and I thought, well, artificial intelligence is also like the big new thing of the day. You hear about it all the time on the news. I thought it'd just be interesting to at least put one foot forward in that, just to be able to learn about it. Other people should take it because I think it's a good class. It's not really that difficult at all, as long as you are able to understand the concepts. And it's very Mr. Cantrell teaches it well. I'd say. I think it's very easy to understand, like even like really complex concepts, like concepts we were learning during when we were doing the chatbot. So yeah, I think other people should also take this class.
For me, I took it because, one, I've always been interested in the computer science of sorts and AI, and two, last year I took another class of Mr. Cantrell's, and I really liked him, and I really liked how he taught, so I wanted to take one this year again, and AI was the one that I chose, and AI is just very interesting to me and always has been. And other people should take it if they're also interested in computers of any sort. It'll be a great basis for you to start learning about it and just learning the programs that you need to learn to, if you want to like pursue it as like your actual career. So yeah, I would also recommend it to people.
Okay, great. Is AI a class where if you had a little bit of programming knowledge going into it, it would be helpful, or does it pretty much start at ground zero? So if somebody's like, I've heard of this computer programming thing, I want to get into it.
I'd say it starts at ground zero. Like, each one of he has 3 computer science classes, not including software fundamentals. He has computer science principles, computer science level A, and his AI class, and each one deals with a different programming language. One was JavaScript, one was Java, and this is Python. And he starts at ground zero. That way you can just completely learn the language from scratch.
There are some similarities between the languages, but take Python and Java, for instance. The way they compile and the way they interpret stuff is completely different from each other, so you have to start at ground zero for each class.
Not to say, like, no previous knowledge wouldn't help. It would, a lot. Like, learning Java helped understand some of the concepts in coding in general, like for loops and if statements and all that, like the simplest stuff. It helped. It does help, but he does start at ground zero if you're, like, looking just to get into coding with no other prior knowledge.
Awesome. You kind of talked about your projects a little bit, so I don't know if this falls into that category, but what has been your favorite part of the class, and or like you have a most memorable story from the class that you want to share with our listeners?
Mine would probably have to be just trial and error through the class. Like, writing your code is one thing, but then having to go back and like actually have to think of what you have to do to fix your code and make it run how you want it to run has been the most challenging, but also the most like engaging and fun part for me.
Yeah, for me, I'd say, the whole process is fun. Like, specifically the projects, is definitely the most fun part because we're actually individually creating this, which is a lot more engaging, I feel like. This probably might change later depending on who joins the class, but I like the individualness of it because there's only 5 kids in the class, which is, some might think of it as a bad thing, but I think it's a good thing because it helps individualize learning. So if each one of us has a question, each one of us specifically can get an answer.
That's great. So if a student wants to know more about the AI class, how can they find out more information?
I would say going to Mr. Cantrell directly and asking about it. And I'm not sure if there's like a section on our website, but it might be there too. but I'd still say going to Mr. Cantrell directly would be the best way to learn.
Yeah, because he definitely like tell you like about the class and stuff and explain it to you. He has like also little posters on his board that like have little summaries of the class. Yeah.
Okay, great. So anything else you want to tell our listeners about the AI class before we sign off today?
I'd just say it's a fun class. If you have any interest in computer science or like, I guess even current events count because like new advances in technology means like coding and stuff like that is kind of in demand. If you just if you have any interest in computer science in general or just coding and you just want to get into it, I think the AI class is a good class because it starts from ground zero. It teaches you an entire programming language, Python. Oh, we didn't mention that. At the end of the year, we take a Python certification exam, which means that we have at least beginner knowledge of Python, like officially, which I think is a good thing if you're not like so into AI, but you're into just like learning coding languages. But there's also the benefit of learning artificial intelligence and how it works and how to like code your own programs, like we did with our projects.
Yeah, and that certificate that you gain if you pass the exam will help you like into college, like you already, and even jobs of some sort. They want to like go into a job with, like a programming language. Having that certificate on your resume would definitely be helpful, and it would just be a fun class for people to try. They don't necessarily have to be into computer science or programming to like it. It's just overall a fun class, especially since the projects you can make are pretty fun.
Very cool. So thank you to both of you for being here. Listeners, if you like the podcast, please be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you can catch future episodes. Be sure to give QI Roberts Student Government a follow on Facebook and Instagram to stay up to date on future episodes and happening around QI. If you feel that we've earned it, please rate and review us on your podcast player of choice and share with a friend. Thank you, Knights, and remember, excellence in all endeavors.